Good morning, beloved. Peace be with you. Well, yesterday, if you were here or you read the readings, in the first reading, we were left with this line. The man and his wife were both naked, yet they felt no shame. And then everything changes today. Everything is building up to today. We're in Genesis chapter 3, and it says, now the serpent enters the scene. We want to look at this. This is kind of the centering on the original, what we call the original sin, or the first sin of Adam and Eve, or of humanity. It's really the temptations we see here, the methods that the devil uses, represented by the serpent, are the same methods he uses today. He didn't change his tactics because they still work on us, unfortunately. So it's worth studying and reflecting on, spending a lot of time on to go down to make sure, we'll point out a couple of these tactics here, but it's worth reflecting on more to make sure, do I understand these tactics that are being used, and are they being used against me? Am I falling for any of these? Because we'll have our guard up at one moment, and then the next moment we can be slipping right into these same old temptations, just like Adam and Eve. And so let's look at just a couple of them to see some of the tactics that the devil or Satan uses represented through this serpent. It says, now the serpent was the most cunning of all the animals that the Lord God had made. And so the serpent asked the woman. It's also important, we can just point out right from the beginning, this serpent, or the ancient serpent, is not necessarily a little garden snake like a lot of the pictures portray, but is always connected to, in the Psalms, the word is Leviathan, this great giant ancient sea serpent. And in the book of Revelations, they talk about the dragon, this ancient dragon from of old. And so different words all used to describe the same imagery. You can see a serpent's probably not too intimidating, but a dragon might be pretty intimidating. So anyway, this serpent dragon comes, and the serpent asks the woman, did God really tell you not to eat from any of the trees of the garden? Did God really tell you not to eat from any of the trees in the garden? First tactic, God is so unreasonable. That's so unreasonable. How could God, why would he make all these beautiful, wonderful trees that are good for food and then not let you eat any of them, His tactic always includes a little partial truth, and then he twists it right at the end, So you miss it, and so somehow he wants to make God seem unreasonable. What's the tactic there? So that we begin to trust our own reasoning, our own understanding, more than God's reasoning and God's understanding. Which means we're trusting our soul, because our soul is our mind, will, and emotions. I'm trusting my own soul, my own self, more than God, who is the Spirit. So am I going to be spirit-led or self-led, soul-led, soul-body-led? This is kind of what all the tactics always revolve around. We were made to be spirit-led, so that the Spirit of God with our spirit is leading our mind, will, and emotions, which are leading our body. So the Spirit tells our mind, will, and emotions how to live life. And our mind, will, and emotions tell our body what to do and how to feel to live life. But you'll notice there's this little war happening inside all of us. Sometimes there's demonic involvement. Sometimes it's just part of our own fallen nature still. Because our spirit is redeemed, but our soul is not yet redeemed. Our soul is in the process of transformation into Christ likeness still. Our body is definitely not redeemed, won't be redeemed until resurrection. So we have this constant battle back and forth. We are now empowered with the Spirit of God, with our spirit. We can choose to be spirit-led again, like Jesus was, and to let the Spirit lead our mind, which is our reasoning, and our will, our choices, and our emotions, which is also to lead our body. Or we can choose to be led by our emotions, to be led by our own strong will, to be led by our own reasoning and self-understanding, which is very limited, or to be led by our own body, appetites, and desires. What are we going to let lead our life? Spirit-led, soul-led, body-led. They're all actually trying to lead our life. The goal, of course, is to be spirit-led. We want to be under God's reign, you could say, or under God's influence. So, did God really tell you not to eat from any of the trees of the garden? That's so unreasonable of him, you know? The woman answered the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. It's only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, 'You shall not eat it or even touch it, lest you die.'" Is that what God said? Not exactly, huh? God said, "You shall not eat it, or you will be surely doomed to die." But he didn't say you can't touch it. Right? Somehow she added, "You can't even touch it." Yeah, you can't even touch this thing or you're going to die, you know? Either Eve added that or Adam added that. Telephone game already, you know? Right in Genesis. Because remember, you just go back 2 days or whatever it was, God told this command to Adam before Eve was even created. That means when Eve was created, Adam had to tell Eve. What did he tell her? So she speaks her interpretation. But the serpent said to the woman, "You certainly will not die." But notice he doesn't say you certainly won't be doomed to die. You certainly won't die. You won't die the death. Remember, God's charge was if you eat this, you will die. You will die the death. So if he just says die one time, he's not talking spiritually, he's talking just physically. You're not going to die physically if you eat this. Which they didn't, did they? No, God knows well that the moment you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. You will be like gods who know what is good and what is evil. So first tactic, one of the first tactics is to make God unreasonable, so you can't trust his reasoning. You have to trust your own reasoning or your own understanding instead of his. Trust your own self instead of the Spirit. Second tactic we see here is your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods who know what is good and what is evil. They are already like God, right? So the second tactic is the devil tries to make us think we have to do something to become what God is, do something to become what we already are, what was already given to us freely. God already made, he said, let us make mankind in our image after our likeness. So mankind is already made in the likeness of God. You and I don't have to do anything to be like God. You're made like him. You don't have to do anything to look like your parents. You already look like them. You know, hold up some pictures, stand next to them. The resemblance is already there. You don't have to do 10 push-ups to look like them. You know, you're already there. So the devil tries to trick us to think we have to somehow work or do something to earn our being, to earn our likeness of God. But no, you were already made in the image and likeness of God. The woman saw that the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eye, desirable for gaining wisdom. All those are descriptions of the soul and the body, right? Pleasing, pleasure to the eye, desirable for gaining wisdom or understanding. So she takes and she eats. Again, it's just back. Okay, she says, this is all good for my soul and my body. She's not even, the spirit is not even mentioned. You know, is there anything in my life where I'm struggling and wrestling with thinking God is unreasonable in his commands? He's unreasonable in what he's asking me to do. He's unreasonable. I surely can't do the things that Jesus did. That's unreasonable. I'm not like Jesus. Yes, we are. Or is there anything where God is trying to trick us? I mean, the devil's trying to trick us into some kind of a performance mentality, where I've got to perform and do these certain things, these certain actions in a certain way, and then I'll be holy. Then I'll be like God. Then I'll be pleasing to God. Then if I do these 10 things, my sins will be forgiven. No, you have to do anything for those things. Or are we tricking ourselves? We're trying to work something or do some works for something that God has already given us freely, you know? It would be like if you and I, you know, our parents made us dinner, and then we say, what do I have to do for this? They said, what do you have to do? How about you sit down at the table and eat it? You know? If every time your parents try to give you something, you say, well, what do I have to do for this? You would do nothing for it, right? That's your gift, the gift of mom and dad to the kids. It's the same with God. Recognizing what he has given us and recognizing we don't have to do anything for it except say thank you. Maybe a thank you could be nice. The eyes of both of them, when they ate it, she said she gave some also to her husband who was with her. So Adam was there the whole time too, very quiet. The eyes of both of them were open. They realized that they were now naked. So they sewed fig trees together and made loincloths for themselves. So, and at the very end here it says, they heard God walking through the desert and they hid themselves from God. So really, with the loincloths, they hid themselves from each other. You know, this is how we can tell sin breaks relationships and breaks trust in relationships, because now they don't trust each other anymore, because now they can't be naked together without shame. They can't stand in front of each other naked without shame anymore. Now, so whatever happened here caused them to not trust each other and to be naked around each other. Because now they cover themselves up and they hide themselves from each other and from each other's looks, from each other's touch. Very interesting. The first thing they do is hide themselves from each other. And then when God is walking through the garden, then they hide themselves from him too. These are the consequences of sin. This is how we can tell we got tricked. We fell for something that wasn't true. We find ourselves hiding, isolating ourselves, even when we're amidst people, even when we're next to people. Do we have walls thrown up? Or we don't trust in the relationship? You know, we're not sharing our life, not sharing our heart, not sharing our mind, not sharing ourself with them. There's not really a trust there. I might be physically present with you, but I'm not actually revealing my heart to you, revealing my true self to you. Those are consequences of sin and shame, which Jesus came to get rid of. Or do we hide ourselves from God? Well, I really don't spend quiet time with God. I keep myself so busy all day long that I don't sit down and be still because I'm not sure what I'll actually think about with him. Do we share our heart with him? Does he know us? You know? Are we hiding from ourselves through busyness, hiding from each other, hiding from God? All those are consequences of sin. There's proof that we got tricked. Somehow we were tricked into not loving and being loved fully as we were made to. So these are some of the original tactics that the devil still uses today, and we just want to be aware so that we can work against them. The number one way to work against them is to say, no, my body and my body appetites will not rule my life. No, my self-understanding and my self-emotions and my self-will is not going to rule my life. I'm going to let my spirit, now united with the Spirit of God, rule my life. I will be spirit-led, not soul-led, not body-led, spirit-led. Every time any temptation comes, instead of looking at the temptation or looking at yourself, focus all your awareness on your spirit, because that's where the Holy Spirit is. And then we can be spirit-led in that temptation and come out successful like Jesus.